Here for York Chats, my name is Parker Siza, and joining me here today is Dr. Clark Rousch, the York Creative District Director, and we're here talking about a grant received by the York Creative District from the Nebraska Arts Council, a grant called Lights, Camera, Action that will provide funding for stage lights, sound systems, curtains, etc., in the Yorkshire Theater and the City Auditorium. Dr. Rousch, thank you for coming in today. First, tell us a little bit about how this grant came about and what you believe will come with it here, as we just kind of outlined right there.
The grant came about as a part of the unicameral creating some funds that were available for anyone that qualified as a creative district through a process that the Arts Council had set up. And so several years ago, Sue Crawford asked me if I would she could give me like the keys to the bus to fill out that 44-page fillable PDF on all the economic markers of York, because the legislature set it aside, not that they don't believe in art, but they really believe in economic development. And so how can we create entities and cities that can create things that are going to bring people to that city and buy the local gas and eat the local food and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So we went through that process, and I worked on that application for about 9 months. Of course, Sue sees everything because it's technically through the city of York. So she has to send in all the legal paperwork and everything. But I met with cohorts throughout the community so we could find out what they wanted. And when that all was done and it was turned in, then they came out and they made a visit. And they wanted to see certain types of businesses, and so I set that up and ran around with them. And then we were granted a creative district status by the Arts Council. And at the time, we were one of 24 in the state that had done that. And that came then with an automatic $10,000 stipend. But we had to tell them how we were going to spend that ahead of time. So our plan was to set aside some money to create more of an online presence. And so we used some of the money for that. We used some of the money for the mural project. Yep. And we used some of the money for the very first cultural festival that we held last year during the Sunday afternoon of York Fest. And so once that is done, there's a pot of money. The legislature set aside $1 million. And then anybody in any creative district can present a proposal. And it'll be interesting to see where they go from here, because now there's way more creative districts than there used to be. But there's still only that 1,000. So we sent in this proposal. We knew that the city council had already approved a new sound system for the city auditorium. But those really cool, nice little outside lights, they're not like permanent. So we want to make them more structurally sound, sure, and where you can change the color of the light bulbs better, and where the wiring is maybe attached to something internal.
And it's a part of it instead of just being a
right,
non-permanent lighting fixture on the outside of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so the rest of the money that was designated to hopefully help the inside of the auditorium, because it's such a great space, but it's old. And so curtains are not cheap, and lights are not cheap. And so we put in a proposal to help do that. Part of the proposal was to create another mural somewhere in town, just to kind of spruce up the visual as people are walking around or driving around. And then very possibly for the first time in the history of the Yorkshire Playhouse, to make all of their lighting and sound as top quality as it can be, instead of them trying to do what they can with what they've got. And so we had no earthly idea. You could turn in a grant for up to $100,000. And so ours was turned in, and we figured everything came up to a little bit over $96,000. So we'll just turn it in that way and see what happens. And a couple Tuesdays ago, I'm honored to be a gubernatorial appointee to the board of directors of the Arts Council. And so I was looking at my computer as we were having our biannual we have 2 Zoom meetings a year and then 2 in Omaha in person. And so I'm looking at the screen, and I've been looking at the screen for about an hour and 40 minutes and listening to board reportments and this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden it came time to report for the creative district. And so they flashed on the screen part of the PowerPoint, and it was a little part of a spreadsheet that said the 10 districts that had been funded. And York was one of those. And I think if we'd have said 100,000, they would have given it to us, because they basically just gave everybody $100,000 to take care of the million. But they had set a cutoff score that you had to at least hit that score from some grant review proposal in order to be eligible. And clearly, our score was above that cutoff score. And so, man, I jumped through the computer screen. I was so excited, because that's how I found out.
Yeah.
And then I made sure I kind of stopped the meeting for a second, and I said, listen, man, before I get really excited and tell everybody, is this like a done deal, or is this like what you're going to suggest? And they said, no, this is a completely done deal. We're just reporting to the board. And so then I sue, and then we started, okay, well, we need to get some quotes from these people, and this and that and the other. And then I believe Friday at 11:30, last Friday at 11:30, I met with her in her office, and we had pooled all our resources and then crafted the press release, as it were.
Well, very good. Very good. Now, what is the current state, would you say, of what is at the Yorkshire Playhouse now? What is that like, and how do you envision what's some new things in there, the new sound system, the lighting and stuff like that? How could that benefit specifically the Yorkshire Playhouse?
Well, it will certainly be the first time. I remember I went to someone who's very, 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 Danielle Deal. She's very involved in the Playhouse. And I went to her and I said, I can't help the Arts Council deadline, and you only have about a week to do this. I said, but have you ever redone the lighting and the sound in the Playhouse that wasn't on like a completely just ghetto budget? And she said, no, that's all. I said, okay, send me your dream list. So she did all the research on the kinds of what the kind of lights they would want, the cost that it would be, the kind of sound system that they would like to have. And then the other part of that is going to be, since they do periodically stream, then it's going to be an enhanced audio visual too. And it's just going to change, what they do. There's spots on the stage right now that you have to block around the fact that they can't fully light it all. Well, now they'll be able to do that. And our hope is, it's a pretty used building throughout the year. So I don't know that we could put anything more in that, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to fund the people that are going to get it done for them. This is my 39th year here in York. And I know the mayor really feels important that there's got to be avenues to use the city odd more.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's an inherent already. I don't know the initials, but the smaller athletic conferences from towns all around.
The CRC and stuff like that.
The volleyball tournament. Well, I think once the city council or the city's done with getting the lights installed and we're done, I think it's going to be a better concert venue. And all it takes, even if we start with like some indie people, well, then the network spreads to them. That was really a great venue.
Yep.
And I think in time things will pick up and it will be used more, for those purposes. And when we want to do really something cool, I know when we did the Jennifer and Anthony Shepard ran point on the Mardi Gras adult prom, and I just happen to know this because the DJ was my son, and he had his own everything to set up. And when Kirby Crawford has her dance recital in there, she has to rent sound system and lights just to have, like a professional presentation from her studio. And so I think once that is all said and done, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a technician, I don't know how much that's going to run, but all the finances of it will all run through the city. Sue's office because she has some people to help that. And so my responsibility as district administrator is really just to run the advisory board meetings, because everything that requires finances has to be voted on by the advisory board. And we set it up that way at the very beginning. Once we got the designation, I was talking to her about the future of it and not knowing, what she had in mind. And she goes, well, I think you need to be the district administrator. I said, that's not where I was headed with this at all. It does not have to be me.
If you have to have me, yes. But
and she said, no, it just really does. Yeah. And I said, well, okay, then, I'm certainly familiar, with the arts and with the process. And so we set up an advisory board that's made up of members of our key partners. We had to have key partners when we did the original grant, just so the Arts Council would know this isn't just a couple of people trying to pull something off in a community. And so the advisory board is Sue Crawford representing the city, myself representing the university, Annie Redfern representing just a visual artist, Kirby representing another artist in the dance world, Elise Owens is representing the Playhouse, Becky Stair is representing YPS, and then Alex and Madonna.
Yep.
From YC, VB, and Chamber. And so that's the group that gets to decide. And my main responsibilities now are just going around and being sure that if the committee chairs, we have committees of involvement, music, theater, it's just based on me. I just came from rehearsal today. And anyway, we set up committee chairs for all of those things because I don't micromanage people. I will help them. But we turn this stuff over. And so the events committee, those things are happening like crazy because Sharif Oltz and Jennifer Shepard are the co-chairs. And man, they get things done.
Yep.
They get things done. And the only role I had at all in the cultural festival was I went to one meeting when they were talking about the music act they were going to bring in, because I knew I would know a little bit more about that than them. And they were going to give each musician 3 one-hour blocks. And I said, no, we're not. We're going to give them each 2 half-hour blocks and spread them out. And that way, if somebody comes and they don't like the music, they don't have to wait an hour.
Exactly. Yep.
Just that kind of stuff. But outside, and then they will often say, can you come to a meeting because we're talking about something, we may be ready for a proposal, we want you to understand that when it goes to the board. And so I just do some of those kind of things. Then I frequently meet with Sue to be sure that we're on the same page. And it's just been such a wonderful thing that kind of like came out of the blue.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about you loaded up your computer screen and or you were watching a PowerPoint and bang, it was right there. That was, I'm sure, pretty awesome. What's and maybe I know there's a lot of work still to do, but is there an ideal timeline for when this is going to be ready to go? Or is that still maybe in the works and still thinking about it?
I don't know if there's a finished timeline yet. There may be one. I don't know if there's one on the grant itself that says it has to be done by a certain time. But I certainly know we're going to get started, on things like that, and probably defer to the Playhouse if they already have like a preferred electrician or somebody like that. We're certainly open to hearing what they need help in and helping with that in any way, shape, or form. But I don't imagine any work on the city odd will need our help. It's just with the original grant and with this grant, I don't know the difference between what was set aside and what we hope. I just know that's the money. Mm-hmm. So people have got to figure out a way to stay on budget and do it for the amount that's been set aside.
If anybody's listening to this, they have questions about this. They maybe have some comments. They want to reach out and find out more information about what's coming. How can they read about this grant? How can they ask you some questions? How can they reach out?
Yeah, there was a great article in Just Melanie about the whole thing, and then we even got Above the Fold in the News Times, which is a term for like, ooh, important stuff. When it's laying flat and that's the first thing you see, then it's above the fold. And we got in there. And I would say I'm fine if, I wish I could remember all those. I know if you want to get involved in helping plan the events, yes, you can always contact me at the university. I think my contact information is in that press release.
Yep.
And so you can use that.
It's on our websites, too. If anybody's listening to this, we have it on our radio. We have the press release on our radio's websites.
Awesome.
CoolRadioNow.com, 1049MaxCountry.com. So that information's available in there, too. But, yes, continue.
Yeah. And the only thing I would say, if you want to phone me, I'm cool with that. But I put my cell number there on purpose so I can separate.
Sure.
This technically isn't a university function for me. Mm-hmm. It's just community service that I love to do. But because I've got an iPhone, if you've never phoned me before, it's going to go to voicemail. And so just be sure and leave me a message, and I'll get back to you. And then I use my personal Gmail, not my campus email, so I can just kind of keep those worlds separate.
Yep.
You can contact me. You can contact Sue. As I said, Cherie Foltz and Jennifer Shepard chair the events committee. Becky Stair. I think still Amy Fraser is in charge of the music. Danielle Deal, I think, is in charge of the theater committee. But if you want to just, we can get you in touch with any committee that you want to. There's an involvement committee as well. That's the one that Sue co-chairs. And so we can get people involved in any way they can. And we never, when I set this up, one of the things I told Sue, Sue and I were setting this up together, is, okay, what's our, we got a mission, we got a vision statement, all that kind of stuff. What's your long-range goal? So my long-range goal is I want to use this as leadership development for all these committee chairs. I just want to empower them to go and find the people that want to scratch the same itch that they do, and just do cool stuff for our city. The visual art committee. I think Karen Harris is the chair of that. So you can start with me or Sue, and we can divert you quickly where you want to go. But we want to be sure that the public knows this is not a small group of people sitting in a room intending to do everything by ourselves. It just had to start with an advisory board and with a committee structure. But we could always use more help, especially for like the big events. When you morph the city auditorium so it doesn't look like a city auditorium, it takes more than 4 people. Mm. And so we'd love to have people that help us plan that, help us with the logistics of that, help us with ideas. Like they travel, they may have heard or seen something. They'd be like, oh, that'd be cool if we could do something like that here in York. Bring it to us, We'll talk about it and see what our finances are like. And I have no idea if we can reapply for a grant next year. I just don't know the rules and regs of that. I just know, being one of 10, that coming off the 10,000 got to almost 100,000. That's just, it's really going to, I think, help create some momentum for us. And I know the Arts Council executive director made a pitch to the unicameral because of the number of the creative districts and how successful they are being. See if they maybe could earmark a little bit more so that more people could be included in the extra funding.
And in grants that were given in the past, and those communities are probably prospering because of that. And it shows that this stuff does some good work. And it's exciting too, because, there are people who, who have done plays with the Yorkshire Playhouse, or they've done events at the city auditorium, and to have newer stuff in there to amplify what they do, magnify what they do, I think it's just going to be incredible. So best of luck with all of that going forward, Dr. Rousch. And is there anything else to add here today?
I don't think so. I appreciate the chance to catch people up live and through the airwaves as well as through the media print. And just contact us if you have any questions, comments, clarifications.
Thank you very much.